Adrian Cole was a very rich man. People called him a billionaire. He owned many companies, houses, and cars. But in his heart, he was lonely. His wife had left him years ago, and he had no children to call his own. He spent most nights in meetings, signing contracts, or counting money. But money could not fill the silence in his big mansion. One rainy night, Adrian was returning home in his black car. The streets were quiet, and the only sound was the rain falling on the road. Suddenly, he heard something strange. At first it was very soft, but then it became clear. It was the sound of a baby crying. "Stop the car," Adrian said. The driver looked back at him, confused. "Sir, we are almost home." "Stop the car," Adrian repeated louder this time. The car stopped. Adrian stepped outside. The cold air touched his face, and the rain soaked his expensive suit. He walked slowly, following the cry. The guards held their flashlights, shining the light near the gate. Then they saw it. Beside the dustbin, lying on the ground, was a newborn baby. He was wrapped in dirty cloth. His tiny body was weak. His fists moved slowly in the air as he cried. Someone had abandoned him, thrown him away like trash. One of the guards shook his head. "Sir, leave the baby. It may be sick. It is not safe." But Adrian did not listen. His heart, which had felt empty for so long, suddenly felt something. He walked closer, knelt down, and lifted the baby in his arms. The baby was cold. His cries were faint, as if life was slipping away. Adrian held him close. "You are safe now," he whispered. The driver asked, "Sir, what should we do with him?" Adrian looked at the baby again. His face grew firm. "He comes with me. Call a doctor. Prepare a room. This child will not stay here another second." The guards were shocked. A billionaire who never let anyone disturb his life was now carrying a baby from the dustbin into his mansion. That night, Adrian made a choice that would change his future forever. He did not know who the baby was. He did not know where he came from. He only knew that he could not leave him there to die. So the baby entered the mansion. Doctors came. Nurses cared for him. Adrian gave orders to make sure the child had food, warmth, and safety. He had no plan. But something told him this baby was not just another child. And he was right, because this was not just a child from the dustbin. This baby carried a secret that tied him to Adrian in a way no one could imagine. One day, years later, the truth would shock everyone. For now, the story began with a cry in the night, and a billionaire who chose to listen. The baby Adrian found was given a name, Ethan. From the very first day, Adrian treated him as his own son. Doctors made sure Ethan was healthy. Maids cared for him like a little prince. Soon, the boy grew strong, and his laughter filled the mansion that had once been silent. Adrian gave him the best life money could buy. Expensive toys, private schools, fine clothes, and food from the best chefs. Ethan had his own room decorated with stars on the ceiling. At night, Adrian would sometimes sit by his bed and watch him sleep, wondering why he felt so connected to this boy. But outside the walls of the mansion, things were different. The world never forgot where Ethan was found. The media gave him a cruel name, the dustbin child. Newspapers wrote stories about how the richest man in the city had picked a baby from the trash. Some people praised Adrian for being kind, but many others mocked Ethan, saying he could never truly belong in a billionaire's home. Even inside the family, Ethan was not fully accepted. Adrian's relatives whispered when they thought he could not hear. "He's not really one of us," they would say. "What kind of air comes from the dustbin?" Their children laughed at him, calling him names when they visited the mansion. Ethan tried to ignore it, but as he grew older, the words began to cut deeper. He often asked himself, "Who am I really? Where do I come from?" When he looked in the mirror, he could not find the answer. He did not know his parents. He only knew that one night, he had been thrown away like garbage, and a stranger had chosen to save him. But there was one thing that gave him strength, Adrian's love. Whenever anyone questioned Ethan's place, Adrian stood tall and firm. "This boy is mine," he would say, "and no one has the right to look down on him." Ethan believed those words for a while. He clung to them when bullies mocked him. But as the years passed, doubt crept into his heart. He noticed the way his father avoided certain questions. He noticed the way people stared when he entered a room. And though he lived in a mansion, he sometimes felt like he was still lying beside that dustbin, waiting to be thrown away again. One day, when Ethan was about 12, he came home crying after a classmate shouted in front of everyone, "Your real parents didn't want you. That's why you were left in the trash." Adrian found him in his room, curled up on the bed. He sat beside him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't listen to them," Adrian said softly. "Your worth is not in where you were found. Your worth is in who you are." Ethan lifted his tear-stained face and asked, "But who am I, Father? Who am I really?" Adrian's chest tightened. For years, he had hidden the truth, even from himself. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Instead, he hugged Ethan tightly and whispered again, "You are mine." Ethan wanted to believe it. He wanted to trust those words with all his heart. But something inside him told him there was more to his story. Something his father wasn't saying. And as he grew into a teenager, that unanswered question burned brighter and brighter inside him. One day, he promised himself he would demand the truth. By the time Ethan was 17, he was no longer the quiet little boy who hid from whispers. He had grown taller, stronger, and sharper. But inside, the same question followed him everywhere. Who am I really? The older he became, the harder it was to escape the rumors. Classmates joked that he was lucky to live in a mansion because without Adrian, he would have died in the trash. Even some of Adrian's business partners hinted that Ethan was not real family. Each word pierced him like a knife. At first, Ethan tried to stay calm. He told himself he didn't care what people thought. But deep inside, he did care. Every insult, every laugh, every cruel reminder that he was once left in a dustbin built a storm in his heart. One stormy night, after a family dinner where an uncle called him the trash boy behind his back, Ethan could no longer hold the pain inside. He walked into Adrian's study. His father sat there in a leather chair, reading business files. "Father," Ethan began, his voice low. Adrian looked up and smiled. "Ethan, what is it, son?" But this time, Ethan did not smile back. His eyes burned with tears. "I need to know the truth. Why me? Why did you take me in? Who are my real parents?" Adrian froze. The room felt heavy, filled with silence. For years, he had waited for this question, but when it came, he was not ready. "Son," he began slowly, "what matters is that you are mine. You are my child. That is enough." "It's not enough," Ethan shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. His voice shook, filled with years of pain. "I wake up every day wondering if I was thrown away because I wasn't wanted. I walk around with people laughing behind my back. And I look at you, and I see secrets in your eyes. Tell me, Father. Tell me who I am." Adrian's throat tightened. Memories of his past flashed in his mind. Memories he had buried so deep that even he wished they weren't real. "I cannot tell you," he whispered. Ethan's face twisted with anger and heartbreak. "Then I will find out myself. I want a DNA test." Adrian stood up quickly. "No, you don't need that." "I do," Ethan shouted. His fists clenched. "You may have saved me, but I cannot live in lies. If you love me, you will not hide the truth." Adrian's eyes watered. For the first time, his son stood against him like a stranger. He wanted to protect Ethan from the truth, but he saw the pain in his son's face. Pain that only answers could heal. After a long silence, Adrian nodded slowly. "If this is what you want, then we will do it." Ethan's shoulders shook as tears rolled down. He walked out of the room, his heart racing. That night, he lay in his bed staring at the ceiling, wondering what the test would reveal. Would it prove he was nothing more than an abandoned child saved by chance? Or would it uncover something even more shocking? Adrian, alone in his study, poured himself a drink but could not take a sip. His hands shook. He knew the past was about to return, and this time he could not escape it. The test was coming, and with it, answers that could either heal a broken boy or destroy them both. The day of the DNA results arrived like a heavy cloud that no one could escape. Adrian's mansion, usually full of laughter from workers and busy staff, was quiet that morning. Everyone seemed to know something important was about to happen. Ethan sat at the long dining table, his hands cold, his heart beating fast. Adrian walked in slowly, holding a white envelope in his hand. His face was pale. For the first time in Ethan's life, he looked less like a powerful billionaire and more like a man carrying a heavy burden. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "Is that it?" Adrian nodded. He sat down across from his son, staring at the paper as if it were a bomb ready to explode. His fingers trembled as he opened the envelope. The room was silent. Even the maid stood frozen at the door, unable to move. Adrian's eyes scanned the words, and his lips parted in shock. Tears filled his eyes before he could even speak. "What does it say?" Ethan asked, his chest rising and falling quickly. Adrian looked up, his voice breaking. "Probability of paternity, 99.9%. For a moment, Ethan didn't understand. He blinked. What does that mean? Adrian's tears finally fell. He stood up, walked around the table, and placed the paper in his son's hands. It means you are my son, Ethan. My blood. My flesh. You are mine in every way. The room gasped. The workers looked at each other in disbelief. The boy once mocked as the dustbin child was the true son of the billionaire. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. His voice trembled. You knew? All this time? Adrian shook his head. No. I swear I didn't know. Many years ago, before I became the man you see today, I loved a woman. She was gentle, beautiful, and kind. But my family did not accept her. I was weak, Ethan. I let them push her away. One day she disappeared, and I never saw her again. I didn't know she was carrying my child. He covered his face with his hands, guilt washing over him. I failed her. I failed you. And fate punished me by throwing my own son at my feet, left in the dustbin like unwanted trash. Ethan's whole body shook. Anger, pain, and relief all mixed together. For years, he had wondered if he was unwanted, if he had no place in the world. Now the truth was more complicated. He was not a stranger's child. He was the son of the man who had raised him, but also the son of a woman who had been abandoned and broken by the same man. Why didn't you find her? Ethan whispered. I tried, Adrian said, his voice cracking. I searched for years, but she was gone. And when I found you that night, I thought it was just fate asking me to save a life. I never imagined it was giving me back my own blood. Ethan's tears fell freely. He dropped the paper, his hands covering his face. For so long, he had carried shame like a shadow. Now he carried truth, but truth came with pain. Adrian knelt beside him, taking his hands. Forgive me, my son. I cannot change the past. But I promise, from this day, I will never let you feel unwanted again. Ethan looked at him through his tears. His heart was torn between anger and love. He had the answer he always wanted, but it left him with even more questions. And deep inside, he knew. Their story was not over. The hardest part had only just begun. The days after the DNA results felt heavy inside Adrian's mansion. The truth had been spoken, but it sat like a stone between father and son. Ethan moved through the halls in silence. He no longer had to wonder who he was, but now he had to carry the weight of knowing. He was the son of the man who saved him, and also the son of the man whose choices had led him to the dustbin in the first place. Adrian tried to give him space. He sent staff away and canceled meetings just to be around him. He cooked breakfast for the first time in years, standing awkwardly by the kitchen counter, hoping to break the ice. One morning he knocked on Ethan's door. Son, he said softly, I know I cannot undo the past, but please let me make this right. Ethan sat on his bed, the DNA paper still folded on the table. Why did you not fight for her? He asked, his voice quiet but sharp. Why did you let them push her away? Adrian sat down beside him. Because I was weak then. I cared more about my name than about love. And I lost everything that truly mattered. When I found you that night, I thought I was saving a stranger. But in truth, it was God giving me a second chance. Those words touched something in Ethan. For years he had dreamed of his real parents, pictured faces he would never see. Now he understood that the man he had called father was both his rescuer and his blood. The past was painful, but it was also proof of destiny. Slowly, Ethan's anger began to melt. One evening, he walked into Adrian's study, the same room where he had once shouted at him. This time, his voice was calm. I don't know if I can forgive everything yet, he said, but I know you tried, and I know you love me. Adrian's eyes filled with tears. That is enough for me, my son. He stood and embraced him tightly. For the first time in years, the mansion felt warm. News of the DNA results spread quickly. The boy once mocked as the dustbin child was revealed as the true heir. People who had laughed at him now looked at him with awe. But Ethan had changed. He no longer needed their approval. He had learned that his value was not in his bloodline or in his father's wealth. It was in his own heart, his own resilience. Months later, Ethan started a foundation for abandoned children, using part of his inheritance to build shelters and schools. No child should feel like trash, he said at the opening ceremony. Adrian stood beside him, proud and humbled. Together they turned their pain into a mission to lift others. The lesson of their story became clear to everyone who heard it. You never know who the person you look down on might become. A child thrown away today could be the leader, the hero, or the heir of tomorrow. And you never know when a simple act of kindness might change not just one life, but your own destiny. And now, I ask you, if you were Ethan, would you forgive Adrian? If you were Adrian, would you have picked up that baby from the dustbin? Share your thoughts in the comments below.